Hello, this is John Hartson. Welcome to Claret and Blue Army TV.
Welcome to Claret and Blue Army TV with me, your host, Baz Cox. I'm delighted to say I'm joined from Jonny from Newcastle Fans TV, and we want to come at you now about what's happening at your club. Frankie and I are going to hit you up with some serious questions here because I think deep down we've got a little bit of jealousy in us that it's not happening at West Ham. You lot are just about to go massive. What's your thoughts, Jonny?
Firstly, thanks for having us on. Secondly, it's obviously exciting times, but I'm going to keep on saying if this takeover does happen, obviously it does look like it is just a matter of when and not if Newcastle do get taken over. But obviously, I'd love to say that the city's absolutely buzzing, but like obviously with everything that's going on, you can't really tell until everything's finished with COVID-19.
You got much fear of it, what it could do to the club?
Look, I think in terms of, I know you're going to probably talk a little bit more in depth about maybe the behind the scenes in terms of the Saudis, but if there was anything massively wrong, obviously you would think that the government would step in and intervene because it'd be more of a government inquiry rather than just a normal man, woman or child talking about it in Newcastle. Obviously the allegations, and I have to stress they are allegations that obviously you've heard about the journalists that have maybe been assassinated or killed. But again, unless we know for sure, and unless the government haven't said, look, we don't see it as a massive issue and the Premier League don't see it as an issue, then we can only really see it from the fan point of view. And that is, can they make Newcastle more ambitious and make Newcastle more successful? If that's the case, then obviously you want that to happen.
Yeah, I'll tell you what stands out for me more than anything is, I said earlier on, it's probably a lot of jealousy. I'd love this to be at West Ham, but this guy coming in, he's got the wealth, that's been proven, but he haggled for so long at the price. Now, I know good businessmen do that, but for me, someone who's coming to take everything and to take over, like at Man City, like Abramovich with Chelsea, there was none of this haggling. Just do the deal. Whatever, go and spend that money on that player. Does that fear hit you that maybe it is a rich owner like Arsenal have got, and the money ain't going to go into the club? I know you lot probably want to see the back of Mike Ashley even quicker than anything else in the world, but that bit stands out for me, why he's haggling so much. And I think it's like 40 million quid, if I'm right in saying.
I take your point, but if I was to turn it back onto West Ham and going, well, you've got this owner who's haggling over £40 million, you'd do anything to see Grady and Sullivan leave the football club. Look, it's obviously it's quite petty in that state, but that extra £40 million could be used on something else. Like, we've got one of the worst training grounds in the Premier League, if not the worst. Maybe some Championship and even League One clubs, I'm not ashamed to say, Sunderland have got a better training ground facility than Newcastle.
There. Yeah, I don't think you've got a worse setup than us, I must be honest.
Honestly, you'd be surprised. You'd be absolutely surprised. I think it's quite funny actually how Newcastle and West Ham are quite similar in how things have happened. Two very well supported teams with shy owners, let's be brutally honest. And
the only blessing for you, you ain't had your heart and soul ripped away from you. We've had that.
Yeah.
Like you've just said with a fan base, you've got a cracking fan base. A law, it's their Premier League Championship, home, away, etc. Blah blah blah. That's always there, and you've got the setup. The ground's huge, and it's an intimidating place for sides to go. With us now, we've got a modern day football ground that's big and vast and spacey. St James's Park is still quite tight inside to the pitch, and yeah, I think you'd be ready with the right ownership and right backing to compete. I think the first person who probably shit himself more than anyone now is Steve Bruce, because he ain't going to be going that far with you.
No, I think it's a fair point. Look, I'll be honest with you. I think what's happened to West Ham, before I go and talk about Steve Bruce, what's happened to West Ham in regards to the bowling ground and then moving to the Olympic Stadium was nothing short of disgraceful, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't think the majority of the fans wanted it. You could have easily made Upton Park or the bowling or whatever you want to call it bigger. There's no way you could not have made that stadium bigger. I don't believe that for a second. Even if you had to move to a different ground for a year or two, Tottenham done it, go to Wembley. It could have easily happened anyway. But obviously, I think it was more financial than anything else. But look, I think in regards to Newcastle and Steve Bruce, I think you're quite right. I think if you look, and you can only look at other clubs, you look at the likes of Manchester City when they were taken over by Sheikh Mansour. Mark Hughes was given around about, I think, 18 months to really have a go at it, and then the owners were fed up with him and got a more sexy name of Roberto Mancini, and obviously he did a great job for Man City. But Steve Bruce, he's done a good job for Newcastle. There was a lot of negativity around his appointment. I think we were on the same pre-season tour at the start of last season, where he was appointed as Newcastle manager. And I think we got beat off Wolves 4-0 in the semi-final, whatever cup that was called. I think he's played Man City.
That's we got beat 6-0 or 7-0.
So yeah,
we just concede more.
But yeah, for me, if it was to happen and say at the end of the season, if Steve Bruce was to keep us up, but we're still in the FA Cup, we've got a quarter final against Manchester City. But let's just say we'll get beat off Manchester City, which is going to be no surprise. Mm-hmm. If he was to keep us up and get to the FA Cup quarter final, Steve Bruce would get a pretty good reception if he was able to come back as an opposition manager. He's done a good job for Newcastle. I think he surprised people because obviously Rafa Benitez was a man that was well loved at the football club. He wanted to be ambitious, but the owners didn't. There was numerous times that Rafa Benitez was linked with the West Ham job over the last couple of years. When Newcastle in the Premier League, you always heard West Ham's name being sniffed about, and that. I think, to be honest with you, I think it wasn't for the loyalty of being at Newcastle. I think he probably would have jumped at going to West Ham because
I think the truth is he
would have gone for it. He
was going to be our manager the year we appointed Bilic, but Real Madrid come in for him last minute. I think I'm 99.9% sure I'm right in saying that, and he was going to be the man, but then he went Real and we got Bilic.
If he wanted if he wanted ambition at Newcastle, he certainly wouldn't have found it at West Ham United. So,
do you fancy David Moyes? He should be available.
Do you know what it was? David Moyes was again another manager that's been linked, but he went obviously down the A19 toward there to Sunderland, and it didn't work for well. Look, I think David Moyes has got a poison chalice at West Ham, if I'm being brutally honest, because the fans didn't really want him because, again, is he the sexy name? Is he like when you first got Manuel Pellegrini? Oh, bums must have been off seats when you brought in Pellegrini, and you must have been so excited. But David Moyes, I think he's just there to do the very minimum, and that's keep West Ham in the division. And he probably will do that. I think it'll be touch and go, but I think he probably will just do that and keep West Ham in the division. But is he going to take you to the next step? And it's the same with Steve Bruce. Can he take you to the next step? And I don't think you can.
No, for me, they're the journeyman managers. They'll jump in the club for 6 months and help you out when you're in trouble, like Sam Allardyce. And I think that's why they've travelled around so much. How about Mike Ashley then? Because we moan all the time about what we've got. And I think our biggest reasons are the lies we're told, the spins, the self-gain that they've had out of West Ham and not thought of our fans. What's it been like for you lot with Mike Ashley?
It's hard to put up in like a couple of sentences, but I'll try my best. Look, when he first came to the club, there was an excitement because we thought he was going to be the next big thing and take Newcastle, further on in the division, because people forget, like people talk about Newcastle's expectations, etc., etc. But Newcastle in European competitions 8 or 9 times over the last 10 seasons before Mike Ashley came into the football club. Yeah. So Newcastle were used to, being in at least the UEFA Cup, obviously known as the Europa League now, and have flirted a bit with the Champions League. However, when you look at some of the decisions he's made, obviously bringing in Kevin Keegan, it was never going to replicate what he did in the 90s. And obviously, consequently, bringing in Dennis Wise and getting signings behind his back. Kevin Keegan having to watch YouTube videos to see who the players that he was bringing in. Didn't have a clue about them. I don't think they made a combined appearances of 10 appearances between Xisco and Gonzalez, the 2 players that Newcastle and Dennis Wise brought in. Changing the name from the Sports Direct Arena, from St James's Park to the Sports Direct Arena. Sacking Chris Hughton when he was doing a great job. Obviously stabilised the football club. Alan Pardew wasn't well received when he first came in. I thought he did a half-decent job under difficult circumstances, but obviously there were testing times in that tenure. You've got to look at the appointments of John Carver, Steve McLaren, not keeping hold of Rafa Benitez. Look, there's probably more that I've missed, and not putting enough money into the football club and not wanting to be ambitious. And look, people from the outside might look at it and go, well, look, you're a Premier League club and, you're spending money. Like you look at maybe the last couple of transfer windows, we spent money on the likes of Miguel Almiron, Joe Linton, Alan St. Maximum, You know, there's players there that we've spent a lot of money on, but it's probably too little too late, and Mike actually just doesn't care. And that's what football fans want. They want their owners to care. You look at the likes of like Leicester. Like Leicester's the perfect example. Obviously, like he lost his life under very tragic circumstances, but he got what the club meant. He got what Leicester meant, and he completely bought in to trying to make Leicester City more successful. And I think at Newcastle and West Ham, it hasn't happened.
He done that with the whole city of Leicester, not just the football club. You know, I think he invested a lot of money into a local hospital and a child's school and things like that. You know, I echo what you've just said there. If I ever wanted perfect owners at West Ham, it wouldn't even be about having millions and being a Man City. You know, give me what Leicester have got. I'm jealous of that. I would love to have that feel at the football club. You know, I believe we used to have it. We've never had good owners, but I always thought West Ham had that feel about it, and that's long gone for me, especially since the move. It has long gone. And I think the London Stadium, but it has gone.
A lot of that is because we had enough control and say in the club for us to have an effect. And, you know, that stadium that was ours and was our own, and we was able to sort of, you know, pack that out and get behind the team and in the way that we used to do. That's gone now because of the stadium that we're in and everything else. And that makes life really difficult. But I think that's really interesting what you just said there. And, you know, I like Newcastle as a club. And I remember growing up as a little boy, it was always a club that I sort of would watch. And you know, when you was sort of around the top of the table and you had that one you just missed out of in the Kevin Keegan era and so on. I've got family from up that way as well. So I always enjoy going to Newcastle. I love the stadium. I think it's the best stadium in the division. For me, it's a fantastic club. But what worries me with this takeover is, you know, yes, okay, he'll have the money. And Leicester have got sort of good financial backing. But is this guy going to come in and completely rip the heart and soul out of Newcastle? Is he going to turn you into just a corporate machine? I mean, you look at City now. A lot of City fans have enjoyed the success that they've had over the past few years. And I think a lot of them were desperate for that bit of success and to taste that. And when they first won the Premiership, it was amazing. Now, they don't even fill that stadium up anymore. They're really struggling to sell those tickets. Even with all the superstars they've got, something seems to be missing. And my concern is just this guy's going to come in. It's all going to be about money. It's all going to get very commercialized. And actually, the sort of passion that you have and the connection that you guys have with the club. I mean, the fact that it's not been ruined so far by Mike Ashley speaks volumes. But, you know, is it worth sacrificing Newcastle as a whole for what if he comes in and says, right, that stadium now, it's too centralised within the city. We need to knock that down, move out of the city a bit. You know, how would you feel if those moves were start to be made?
Can I add on that? There was a story before about a takeover you had, and owners wanting to build a training ground in London, and your players training there but playing in Newcastle the weekend. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was speculation, but that come around. What if things like that did happen on top of what, like Frankie's just said?
Obviously, it's obviously a long-winded question, but I'll go bit by bit. In terms of the training ground, I think if that was the case that the training ground was in London, but you'd play at Newcastle, I don't think it would be the end of the world because, look, London's not Newcastle. In terms of, I'm not being disrespectful to Newcastle, it's London. Everybody wants to be in London, but
I'd rather not Newcastle.
Hey, there's some nice places in Newcastle. No, in all seriousness, the appeal of London is probably why there might have been some players that were probably tipped to go to Newcastle, but maybe have gone to a West Ham or a Fulham or a QPR back in the day in terms of maybe going to them sort of clubs because they're in London. It wouldn't be the end of the world. I'd be more annoyed if a stadium was built in London and you had to go and watch Newcastle in London. But I don't think that will ever happen. But obviously, going back onto the money aspect of it, yes, there has been times where you look an ambitious owner's come in and spent a lot of money and it hasn't worked. I think Everton's probably the best example I can probably give. Mashiri's come in, sacked 2 or 3 managers and given them a lorry load of money. They've now got the manager, and now if they spend money in the summer for Ancelotti and it doesn't work, what do they do now? Because they've got a fantastic manager. So I think with Newcastle, financial fair play is going to have a massive impact on this. We can't just do what Man City did and just go, right, we're going to buy Robinho, we're going to go and get Adebayor, Carlos Tevez, Roque Santa Cruz, the names go on, the list goes on. Newcastle are going to have to do it step by step. They've got do one big thing at a time. We could probably spend more money in a transfer window, but we can't make too many ambitious signings. We've got to be sensible. But I think from what you hear, obviously Amanda Staveley and the PCP group, which are going to take over for the time being, and then obviously the Saudi investment will come in after that. They will have an 80% stake of the group. And then the Reuben brothers, who are also part of this deal, have a 10% stake in this group. They're worth about 18 billion. If it was just the Reuben brothers would be the second richest club in the Premier League, just behind Man City. So with them and the Saudi states, it's going to be very interesting. The final point is obviously the corporate side of it, which I think Frankie makes a good point on. What I would say is that with Newcastle, it is very working class. I'm not saying Manchester's not, but I can't see that happening overnight. Obviously, Manchester City they had an empty stadium before they got taken over by Sheikh Mansour. They've still got empty seats now, and they've done unbelievable. They only seem to sell out against Man United and Liverpool, and the odd occasional game against somebody else. With Newcastle, we've been getting 50,000 apart from this season in the Championship under Rafa Benitez. We were getting 50,000 when it's not been good. So we could probably I would 99.9% sure that Newcastle can get 50,000 when it's good, because it'll be a place that you want to be at week in, week out.
I'd be surprised at that, I think. And we've seen, before we left Upton Park, we could sell tickets and tickets and tickets. And, we took 7,500 to Wigan, and our following's huge. But since we went to that new stadium, people have started, those sort of lifelong hardcore fans are turning their back on it. And they're turning around and going, this whole new way of supporting the club and this stadium that they've put us in, it just isn't what West Ham's about to us. And, we now have so many tourists go over there. All of a sudden you've got popcorn that they're selling in the stands and stuff like that. And people have just gone, that is not for me. And, I can see us starting to struggle. When we first moved into that stadium, packed out. We're now really starting to struggle, and there's a lot of empty seats, and you can get a ticket for any game now, and you never used to be able to do that. So the memories that I have of Newcastle was, you'd sign a new player, everyone would be outside the stadium, and they'd be in the city centre, and they'd be celebrating and cheering, and anything big that ever happened at the club, people used to congregate around that stadium and used to be there. And I don't know if that still happens now, or whether that's sort of a thing of the past, but that's how I remember your club. I remember it being such a sort of a focal point of the city, and everyone being together, and it would just be a real shame. And I'm not saying that will happen. They might come in and they might do a Leicester and really take to it and understand it. But when you've got a consortium, and then you've got, other people who are invested in, and it's the Saudi. Like Saudi are obviously getting involved in boxing now. They're getting involved in a lot of British sport as much as they can, and try and take tourism to Saudi Arabia and so on. It's just, what is their agenda? Are they going in to make Newcastle a footballing force, or is it an advertising ploy for them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point in regards to obviously the Saudis, and you've mentioned obviously that the Anthony Joshua fight was in Saudi Arabia just recently against Andy Ruiz. They've had the WWE, I'm not a WWE fan anymore. I was when I was a kid, but they've had events there, and that's worked. That's been successful. You can only take from what you hear, and a lot of different people are saying that it is a perfect opportunity for Saudi Arabia to try out Premier League football, because it's a great price for Newcastle, £300 million. It is a great price, obviously for people that have that money. But, if they've been linked by Manchester United, and it was mentioned on a Man United podcast, that they were willing to put, I think Man United want £4 billion for the club. That's 10, 11 Newcastles. They know what they want to do. They're saving so much money. Yes, it's a lot more work to do, because Newcastle are nowhere near as big as Manchester United.
The foundations are definitely there.
Exactly, and the slight difference with us and West Ham is we don't have to go a couple of miles down the road and make a new stadium. We've got it. We only maybe have to make slight improvements to making it look a little bit nicer. The ground needs a bit of TLC, there's no doubt about that. But what I will say is that even if Newcastle were to say add another 10,000 seats, it's not going to cost a lot of money, even if a new owner was to come in anyway, because Tottenham and West Ham.
Sorry, mate. That top tier where the away fans go, could they get permission to go right around there?
So the only problem with where the away fans would be, where you see the only gap is the East End is listed build. Yeah. So there's listed buildings behind the east stand. So you can't in there. That's why they would have done that years ago, Baz. They would have done that absolutely years ago. There is a bit of scope around the Gallagher, which is obviously across from the away end where the West Ham fans would sit. There is still a possibility that could be extended, and if that was extended, you could get an extra 8,000, 10,000 seats behind that, which would make it obviously a fantastic obviously investment in regards to that. But you need the club to be doing well for that to happen. Newcastle obviously are doing all right, but obviously there's so much toxic.
See, one improvement you could make your stadium in escalators. Or lift.
Do you know what it is? I knew you were going to say something like that.
Every time I go up there, I said to you earlier, I stay down by the river and I walk up a hill like that to get into town. Walk through the turnstile and I've got about 700 flights of stairs. I don't know why.
It just means just means that you got to go to every pub though. You got to have a few drinks at every pub you can go past in Newcastle. I think we've got like over 100 odd pubs in Newcastle you can go to.
It is a great place to be, and to be fair, you know, and I'll go back to what we're talking about. If this was happening at Everton, you know, for an example, I'd probably be pissed off. I ain't so much for Newcastle, you know. I don't think they're a bad club. I don't think, apart from obviously Sunderland and Middlesbrough, many sides really hate Newcastle. I certainly don't. I've got no hatred against them. And I think we said earlier, we do, for me, West Ham and Newcastle sort of compare a bit. I think you've had a lot better times than us of late. We've competing for stuff, you know, we ain't been at that level for God knows how long. Our best we've done, we had a FA Cup in 2006, playoff final. You know, we ain't had no push in the league for God knows how long, and most things we do are relegation battles. But so as I say, I don't have jealousy. I just hope from how we've gone since we've moved, I just hope that don't happen to Newcastle. I really do hope that don't.
Yeah, I don't think it will. Hopefully there's a plan, but the only thing I will add is that what they want to try and do as well. Obviously, from, say, Glasgow, obviously you've got Celtic and Rangers who have massive clubs in their own right. If you go downwards from Celtic to Rangers to Burnley, Newcastle are the only Premier League club. Sunderland are in League One. Middlesbrough are fighting to stay in the Championship. The only team that could possibly be in the Premier League in that sort of area is Leeds United. And I think a lot of fans would like to see Leeds United back in the Premier League as soon as possible. What they want to do in the short term is to go, right, can we make this the place to be? Can we go, right, let's get the best young players and get them nurtured in Newcastle with world-class coaching at fantastic training facilities. And then we can go, right, this is where you want to be. This is the place you want to be. We've got world-class coaches. We've got a world-class manager at the very top who will give players a chance if they're good enough. I think that's the dream. I think that's what most clubs would like. I think, obviously, one of the reasons why I think maybe Newcastle... maybe potential investors would maybe go to Newcastle rather than West Ham is because it would probably cost more money to buy West Ham. If I'm being brutally honest, you're probably adding an extra 100 odd million.
I think, like you said as well, you know, you ain't really got a lot of competition up there. You know, Chelsea already bought out. Arsenal and Tottenham are massive. You know, there's big competition there already. Especially if you're trying to sign players, you know, come to West Ham or come to. With our training facilities at the moment, I've been to Tottenham's, and you know, you look at Tottenham's ground, Tottenham's training ground as well. You know, compared to ours, and it is laughable. And if you're a top end player, you ain't going to be signing for West Ham for facilities alone. The only thing you'll come for will be money.
Yeah, which is difficult for us.
Money talks.
It does, and you know that's where we've sort of missed the mark. I mean, if things were different, if we'd have moved into that stadium. And the people that are behind the ownership of that ground now and the London legacy, if they had had enough of spending the taxpayers' money and putting it down the drain, and we'd been given the opportunity to buy that stadium, I think we'd be even more of an investable asset than Newcastle at this moment in time, because that's some of the prime real estate in London, and that's what I think our owners were hoping for, and that would make our club worth 750 million all day long. If we own that land, the value behind that is phenomenal. But I think the way we went about getting that stadium was so underhanded and so wrong that the people who are involved are just so adamant, we will not give you that ground. We are not giving it to you because, you know, we didn't go about it in the right way. There was a lot of things that went on, very, very sort of a lot of skullduggery went on there that shouldn't have gone on. And that's why it was looked into. And that's why there was a big sort of light on it at the time and afterwards, and a lot of people were asking for investigations to be done. And I think that's our downfall now. We're not an investable asset because we have no assets. Our stadium isn't owned by us. Our training ground is, well, it's not even much of a training ground, a few porta cabins, and that's all you get. And it's a shame because, you know, as a support and as a fan base, I think we should be a very attractive club for investors to come and buy. There were talks again today, and we keep hearing the rumours of Red Bull coming in and potentially wanting to buy West Ham, and that rumour keeps circulating. And every time it does, we sort of get a little bit of hope, or certain sections of the fans get a little bit of hope. But even then, even some of the fans who want to see this big change and are fed up of the ownership that we're under now and the lies that go on, even then, some people don't even want to sell out to Red Bull. You know, we've already sold out so much. Well, you know, if they took that name and all of a sudden you're Red Bull West Ham or you're whatever it may be, that's the last bit of identity we've got left. You take that away as well, and the club's non-recognisable. It might as well be a new football team. So it's difficult for us. I'm really glad that you're not in that position. It's obvious that will never happen with this new ownership. It's just whether or not they, like I say, they do get Newcastle as a club. I would like to think they'd put somebody as a sort of a person who fronts it, who, you know, would really get close to the supporters and understand it. I think Leicester and Wolves have done that. I think they've, you know, got so close to the fans, the things they give back, the things that they do. You know, they those fans, although they've got these massive investors behind them now, I think they feel closer to the club than ever, even though they're moving on and got this money and got investment and got success. I think those clubs are feeling closer than ever and are really on the journey that the investors have got with them at the moment. And, you know, I think that's the right model and the right way to do it. So, you know, it would be good to see. I think one thing that the Premier League needs at the moment, I was watching Premier League years of the first couple of seasons, 92, 93, 93, 94. And obviously you was heavily involved in that. And, you know, Newcastle were really challenging and competing at that time. And it was a competitive division. Up until the last few games, there was like 5 or 6 teams in the mix. We're missing that at the moment. I want to see a bit more challenging at the top. I want to see a title that's contested and we haven't just got runaway, you know, people going for it. So it might bring a bit of excitement back as well if we can get some people, you know, on the same level as Man City's and, you know, the money that these other teams have. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to be us anytime soon.
I think it's a good point about the players, like you said, like how they kind of getting a player on board or getting some like a legend on board to kind of sell the club even more. Like if I was to ask you, think of a player that plays for Newcastle, who would you say?
Playing now?
Just any Newcastle player.
You'd go Alan Shearer, obviously.
Alan Shearer.
I thought you meant currently. Long start. I always think of him because I think of the poor lad being rice every single week. It's the matter with you. It's the only fault you lot have got. How can you even think he's near him? Declan Rice. What was that?
That was another channel before I start. They're not bad lads. Then they just got it wrong on the day. That was all. But no, in all seriousness, like Frankie says, Alan Shearer. There's the USP, right? Yeah. You would go right. Let's get him involved in this football club a bit more because at the minute he's got a statue that's outside, not even in the stadium proximity. You've literally got the stadium; it's just kind of kept around the corner. You would want him more involved. You'd want him to be, come on, we'll make you an ambassador and we'll sell this football club around the world almost with just telling how great it is. Be like West Ham bringing in someone like a Paolo Di Canio. That's one of the first names I think of when I think of West Ham United. You know, somebody like that. And you would go, right. Or obviously, if he was still alive, the late Bobby Moore, you would want those sort of players that you'd go, right, sell this, sell West Ham, sell Newcastle, make us more appealing to the world. But they don't even do that, the current owners. And obviously, it comes back to the question. I think one thing I'd like to pick up is the stadiums, because obviously, as an outsider looking in, and I've never been able to ask this question to West Ham fans. Before you were moved into the Olympic Stadium, and what was the split like between the fans wanting to leave Upton Park to go to the Olympic Stadium and actually staying at the Bowl Inn? Because from an outsider, it was kind of like you were sold a dream in that, right, if we move here, we're going to be competing for the top 4, competing for the top 6. But I think what was it like? Did West Ham fans think, actually, no, we're probably better off just staying where we are and actually making us bigger and better at the bowling.
Who's going first, Frank?
I think we're both going to have different opinions here, but you can.
It'd be good to get different opinions because, like I say, from an outsider, it is very much.
Yeah.
You know, we don't really know. If I'm being brutally honest. So especially up in the northeast, it's a bit of a long way to London.
Who's going, Frank?
Go on, you can go, mate.
Right. I'll be honest. I actually bought into it personally, and I strongly believed at the time with what we was told. Everything that was put out, the videos that were made, etc., the stuff we were seeing, the promises we were told, I thought that would be the next best thing for West Ham to potentially move forward. Now, that last season at Upton Park, it's Upton Park to me, the bowling come in that last year. No, that was another sales gimmick, farewell bowling shit. You know, every other season it was like, we're going to Upton Park now. And all of a sudden, that last year, right, that's what's happening at the bowling ground. Fuck off. Always Upton Park. It has got two names, I agree, but it was always Upton Park.
Yeah.
So that season we done very well. Probably overachieved. And if I'm honest, in a shit league, no disrespect to Leicester, that's the year Leicester won it. You know, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United, they weren't up in it. You know, these sides weren't as good as, nowhere near what they are now. And we done well to finish where we did. I mean, what do you call it? Southampton finished above us. That's how poor the league was. And I don't mean that nasty again to Southampton. It was a weak league. And from there, I thought we could really kick on. Move to a stadium that's got 50, 60,000 seats. You know, we were sold this as a 66,000 seat stadium. When we went there, we weren't getting certificates of insurance for more than 53,000. It's now only 57. It's gone up in stages. And I promise you, on my life, this is how rushed it was. And this is when things didn't make sense. First home league game against Bournemouth. Our turnstile, I sat next to the away fans. Our entrance was the same as the Bournemouth fans. I've walked through the turnstile concourse, I promise you, with all the Bournemouth fans. Now,
Can you imagine if that was Tottenham?
If we had played Tottenham or Chelsea, there was no organisation.
There was trouble that day as well.
There was. And to be fair, another story, and this is genuine, videos were made. People were walking up the steps to their seat. Now, let's say they're in row 17, seat, or it was further up. Let's say they're in row 67, seat T, whatever. As they get there, I promise you it's a concrete slab. Not even a plastic chair fitted to it. That was their seat that they had paid for. Everything was so rushed. And as soon as things like that started happening, people were changing their mind. Now, there's a lot, like Frankie said earlier, there's a lot of fans that have never been there. When we was at Upton Park, we didn't do enough as a fan base who moan now to not let that happen and to find out the truth. We let it go. We bought into the dream, in my opinion. We should have stood our ground then. Instead of just accepting this bollocks, you know, and I make this comment now, you've only got to look at Sullivan and Gold and the business they've done at Birmingham. You know, they fucked that football club. There's not one Birmingham fan that will tell you they were good for that club. A bit like yourselves. When Ashley goes, I can't imagine there's going to be 1% Newcastle fans that are going to say, he was good for us, you know. And history repeats itself. And what they done there, they mugged us fans off. This is what I can't... Listen, I don't wish them bad, personally. Not in any way, shape or form. I don't want to see them get ill, be killed, be beaten up or anything. Nothing like that. But I cannot stand what they're doing to West Ham. And I would love Kevin Keegan. I would love, and I mean love it. I would love to see the back of them. Because they have ruined what, for me, was a club that was unified, had a family feel to it, and completely ripped it apart.
Yeah, and my opinion isn't as different, but a few more things stick in my mind. I think Upton Park, if you go to that area now, it's an absolute dump. The actual area itself is, I mean, none of the pubs that exist anymore, they're all gone because we're not there. It is an absolute dive of an area. There was nothing nice about going to that stadium. But the stadium was ours, and it had so much history, and it was a proper football stadium. And I loved going there. And you know, when we got relegated, it didn't bother me. I didn't care because I just loved going and watching West Ham at that stadium. Absolutely, that was all I wanted to do, was go and watch West Ham United at Upton Park. That was it. But we never had any luck there. People used to say it was Anne Boleyn's curse and it was on the castle. Then that's all that sort of stories that you hear. We never had any luck. All the big nights we had there, we lost. And I remember on that night we was coming out and my dad was there and I was at the last game. Dad went, just knock it down now. Just let's move on. Let's go and have the next stage of West Ham. Let's start being having the success that we deserve. We all believe we're a sleeping giant. With the fan base we've got and with the sort of history we've got as a club, we should be far bigger than what we are. And I totally agree. So we come out of there and we all believed that this was the right thing to be doing. And we got to go up to, we had a supporters sort of, I don't know, it was like a shop in Stratford, and you all got invited there to go and choose your seats. And they played this video that Ray Winston done this promotion, and you saw the stadium rolling out on wheels when it was put into football mode and retracting itself. You saw really close up to the pitch. You even had a photograph taken because the whole way around the stadium was going to be one giant screen. It was going to be the biggest screen in Europe. Well, the screen's like, I've got a bigger TV in my front room now. It's like about 45 inch is what we've got.
Still can't fit on it.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And all of those things that you saw, then all of a sudden you get there and there's no wheels for the stadiums coming out. It's all on scaffolding. The lies that were told to pacify us. The simple answer to your question is, no, there wasn't a big contingent of West Ham fans saying do not move. There was no protest. There was a sort of one movement of people that were saying this is the worst move ever and we shouldn't be doing it. But it got no traction at all, to be honest. And I can't speak for everybody, but I would say the majority of people were sold that dream and were happy to move on at that time and thought we was moving into something that was going to be quite special. And I thought, imagine, 65 odd thousand West Ham fans all singing I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles. I thought it was just going to be incredible. And like I say, the problem now, mate, we go there, we sing Bubbles. It was louder at Upton Park, even though it was half the amount of people. You go there, there's people sitting there with their laptops. There's tourists absolutely everywhere. There's fans in other football shirts. I've seen Tottenham shirts in there. I've seen all different shirts. When we played Liverpool, loads of Liverpool was getting tickets in the home end. I heard earlier on some of the issues that you had with Mike Ashley, and I'm not saying that you haven't had a lot of issues and deserved a lot better, but I can promise you what's happened to our football club and the lies that we were told to be where we are now was nothing short of a travesty. And it's a real shame because what was West Ham United is a shadow of its former self. And it's painful, mate. It's really painful.
It seems like it should be like an inquiry of some sort, because when you look at, I'll be honest with you, from what you hear, it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe I might probably be a bit wrong now, but like 70 people were for, 70 people were probably, or West Ham fans were for this move. But when I was just speaking to yourselves now, it seems more maybe 90-10 were in favour of it. Maybe that might be roughly.
Yeah, I think there was a high percentage that probably did. And I think the younger fans would have wanted it more than older fans, for sure. I do think that. If when this come about, they said, look, we've got the chance of moving for £2 million a year. We've got 36,000 here at Upton Park. We can go up there, have 60,000. Your seats will be the same price as what you're paying at Upton Park, and it ain't going to keep going up because we've got the extra seat numbers now, etc. But we're still going to be West Ham. We're still going to be that mid-table club, maybe fighting a relegation battle every few years. I think it would have been 100% would have gone with it. But when you're told we're going to have the best nights in European football in 4 years' time, and that first summer, you're crying out for a forward, and you're only signing his Zaza on loan. Now, to be fair to Zaza, he didn't have a bad Euros, apart from that shit penalty. Didn't he? And he weren't a bad player. He done fuck all for us. He was terrible. But, they gave nothing back. And they keep running away with this bollocks that they've never taken a penny out of the club. And in fairness to them, they've never drawn a wage from what they've said. But why do you need to draw a wage when you've lent the club football club money and you're charging astronomical interest rates? but boast, we've never taken a penny out of the club. They're scum. What they've done to West Ham is scum. And David Gold, I used to feel a bit sorry for him and think it was more Sullivan, but David Gold spun us all. I'm a fan. I grew up in Green Street. I've played at Upton Park. This bollocks. Yeah? You're that much of a fan and you care that much about West Ham. Why did you go back into business at the club you support and love with David Sullivan, who together you ruined Birmingham City? Why did you do it again? He knew. They knew, mate. And they knew there was a massive opportunity to earn a lot of money. Credit to them. They're fantastic businessmen. And that's what they've done again. They've made West Ham a business for their own game.
And I would say from the Mike Ashley thing, I actually agree in a sense that he's a good businessman.
He's a fantastic businessman.
He is.
Fantastic.
And I've watched a thing on YouTube, which is his questions when he took over the House of Fraser. The way he talks in that interview is phenomenal. Like, if there's one person you wanted representing your business in a difficult meeting, it's that man. He is. I mean, how he can spin things. He's as good as Sullivan and Brady. Don't worry about that, because he sat there and made he made the MPs look silly. He absolutely tore them apart, and he looked like he come out on top of that like he was a saint. And we all know he's far from it. But it's. I think it's a shame that football's going that way a little bit at the moment, and it is becoming all business driven and so on. And it's like I say, I was watching the Premier League years. You look back on how football used to be and how that Premier League used to be. It used to be such an unbelievable league, and football was for the people. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately now it's getting more and more not like that. And that's something that we've bounded about. Is would we go back to Upton Park and take being in the Championship? And it's a really difficult question. It's not a popular one. A lot of people say, look, you only ever want to be at the top of the football sort of tree. You want to be playing Premier League football. You want to watch, the best players. For me, it was never about that. It was about just, being West Ham. And it's probably a little bit different for you because you've tasted a little bit of success over the years. We haven't. So you probably want a little bit more of what you've had a taste of before. So.
Yeah, all I would say to that question about the Championship, the first time we got relegated in 2009, it was the best thing that ever happened to us. It was you found out who cared about the football club and who wanted a paycheck and go to another club.
Who was your owners then?
Ashley. Newcastle have been relegated 4 times in their history, and twice it's been under Ashley in 13 years, or 7 years. I think we got relegated twice. So when you look at Newcastle, Mike, you talked about Mike Ashley being a fantastic businessman. Yes, there's no doubt about that. Sports director have done exceptionally well. He's been able to buy other places on the high street. There's no doubt about that. But his easiest business, business was Newcastle. It is his easiest money-making machine. He had to basically go, right, let's get Geordies to go into a football ground. It's so easy. It is so easy, and sometimes you can't even do that.
Yeah.
If he just put 10% of interest in Newcastle United, we wouldn't be having this conversation. 100%. It is the easiest thing. It's like trying to get kids buy sweets. It's easy. You can do it. It's honestly, you go to Newcastle, it's football mad. You go down to Sunderland, it's football mad. That's all we've really got in the North East. We haven't got a great deal going on in terms of things to really support. The football club is the passion and the soul of Newcastle, and all Mike Ashley had to do was go, right, how can we make this the best thing since sliced bread? And he couldn't do that. And it is amazing because I've watched the same interview as Frankie mentioned about him speaking to MPs and how to improve the high street. He's very smart. He's a very smart. I think one of the comments is I understand how I'm poor and he's rich, because he is very, very smart in how businesses should be, but he just doesn't have the interest in Newcastle. When he first came in, he loved the lifestyle. He loved going out in Newcastle because he was treated like a king. He was, he brought back Kevin Keegan. You bring back Kevin Keegan, you may as well almost get the keys to the city, and that's how it was perceived. But look, I'll put the question back to you. After everything that we've gone through and everything that you've gone through, obviously it's a tale of 2 terrible owners. But right now, would you swap? If you had the choice, would you swap? And that's exactly the same with us. We would swap.
The biggest reason I'd swap is because you've still got your identity.
Yeah.
more than anything. And your fan base hasn't been pulled apart. You all pull in the same direction, Ashley out, right? But we're just so split. You know, I see the benefits of this move. I do. You know, as I said, there's 60,000 in there every week. A dad can take his kid on the season ticket for £99 a year. It's £5 a game. Perfect. I get all that. I really do. And if they was honest, maybe you'd forgive them a bit. But there's never been an honest statement. I'll swap with you now because you have everything about your football club why you support them, except for the man that owns you. We have nothing about our football club except for claret and blue, and I'm forever blowing bubbles left. That is all that we've got left at West Ham. And our captain, Mark Noble, because he understands West Ham. That's it.
If you got Mark Noble in a room and said, if he wasn't getting recorded, for example, and say he wasn't getting paid a wage by West Ham at the time under these owners, do you think he would go hammer and tong? Obviously, you lose the expression about the hammer, but do you think he would go right into them?
Yeah, I think Mark Noble's used by a lot of fans as a bald bitch, is the comments used. You know, he's a professional footballer. He has to say he's the captain of the club. He cannot sit here and tell you, we got shit owners at West Ham. He can't say that. He can't sit and say, well, if you're doing this, here's my armband back. I don't want to do it. You know, he's honoured to captain that football club. He's grown up supporting. His dad supported. He's honoured for that. He draws away. What do people want him to do and say, nah, fuck it, fuck West Ham, I'm going to leave because they got shit owners? He's more of a man than that.
I think it's hard, that question, because, you know, he's made himself a very, very rich man from that football club. And those owners are stuck by him as the club captain. And, you know, he's going to have a very, very, very good life off the back of it. So his opinion will be watered down a little bit. I think if they asked him, if you got a genuine opinion of was the move a good move, and do you enjoy playing now in front of 55,000 in the Olympic Stadium, or did you prefer playing at Upton Park? No question he would have preferred to play at Upton Park. I think any football player would. I mean, how many times do we even get other team supporters going, you know, my favourite ground was going to Upton Park. Everyone loved to go to Upton Park. That was, you know...
Like you said earlier, Frank, it weren't the ground and it weren't the place. It was the passion within it. Yeah. And you felt you was at that football ground all together. Now, you walk down the road, it's fucking all shit everywhere. Now, I'll be honest with you now, you get off the train at West Ham now, you don't see a burger van, you don't see a scarf and hot dog seller and programs and peanuts until you walk through a fucking bridge that you're queuing up to get through with security. And then you walk around a thing and you start smelling all the burger. Oh, yeah, I'll take my niece all the time. Yeah, Uncle Baz got a bit of something to eat. Yeah, what do you want, babe? I'll have that. I'll have chicken nuggets and chips, please. That's 11 quid. What? 11 quid?
And that's
how it is.
Have you been to the Olympic Stadium?
I've not. Do you know what it was? I've been to majority of London grounds. The only one I haven't been to was West Ham, and I really kind of, because you always hear, I think especially midweek games, you hear a game under the lights at Upton Park, and you think, oh, would it be amazing? And like that was. I've been to Arsenal. It's got no atmosphere. I've been to Tottenham at White Hart Lane and the new stadium. And look, don't get me wrong. If you've been to the new stadium at Tottenham, it's probably the best stadium in the country. I have to be honest. Chelsea, it is what it is with Chelsea. You know, it is. That's what they've got. Palace is a dump, if I'm being brutally honest. But West Ham, for me, you know, like Upton Park was the place that would rather be at. But the Olympic Stadium it's an athletics ground. You know, West Ham, obviously, we talk about the financial side of it, but that's what it was there for. It was there to be there for the Olympics. Someone was going to take that ground. There was always going to be someone that had to take that ground, and unfortunately, it was West Ham. I have to be honest with you, it is one of the only grounds I haven't been to in London. I probably will go to West Ham away if next season, if everything goes according to plan. However, it's not one that I'm going to go. I'm really excited about going to. It's not. I'd rather if it was Upton Park. And I know that might sound disrespectful towards yourselves, but it's not that at all. It's just you don't have the same feel for it. It's the same with Tottenham to an extent. You know, you've probably been to White Hart Lane and you walk down Seven Sisters Road and you think, it's like, especially for West Ham fans, it's all right. For the Newcastle fan, there's not that hatred, but it's like walking through a war field, isn't it, to try and get from Seven Sisters to the old White Hart Lane. Obviously, the new one, yes, it's modern, yes, it's good. The only difference with Spurs and West Ham is from the grounds is that it's in the same place. It's exactly the same place. It just knocked it down and made it bigger. If West Ham had done that at Upton Park, again, the owners would be getting a lot more positivity around them, and you would think, yeah, do you know what? It was the right thing to do at the right time. But
even if they made it to a 42,000 or 45, that would have been plenty for West Ham. Plenty.
Exactly.
No, I don't know the figure. What does Stamford Bridge hold? That can't hold more than 45, 46, does it?
I think it's about 42. So yeah, but like I've been to Stamford Bridge a couple of times, and it is what it is.
And they're Chelsea, they're league winners. Why do we need to be bigger than them? We've never won the league. We'll never compete to win the league. It was all a lie. And I want to flip this quickly before we wrap it up. We get sung to us by probably 99.9% of away fans that come. You're not West Ham anymore. And that's because we've just had everything taken. How would you feel? It would be different for you if you come on, if your owners, new owners, potential owners come in, made you start winning everything, beating every side, and started seeing that. That's a jealousy song. It ain't a jealousy because of West Ham. It's because of how poor we are and what we've now got. How would you feel though, as a fan, if fans started singing that to you? You're not Newcastle anymore, whatever, because all of a sudden you're winning things every year. Would you put it down just to jealousy because you're now competing? Or would you think, fuck me, we have had our identity taken?
It's a difficult question to answer. I have to put it down. It's a very good question as well. I do take your point in regards to, you're not West Ham because your soul's been taken out of you. Newcastle, it's been so long that Newcastle have just wanted some ambition. And it's try and compete. There'll be a section of fans that will go, do you know what, this is the best thing that can ever happen to the football club. If Newcastle were to go through everything that West Ham did, but just say win the FA Cup, I think Newcastle fans would take it. And I know that sounds stupid, but they will get to see their team that they've supported all their life win a cup, win something. And I think that's what it probably comes down to, is winning. I think it's winning and winning trophies. And look, Newcastle and West Ham don't have the best trophy records. It says there in black and white, literally. But could you imagine if Newcastle were to win an FA Cup, what it'd be like in the city? Could you imagine, but even if West Ham were to win the FA Cup or the League Cup, and you've seen Mark Noble pick up the trophy, there'd be tears in grown men's eyes. You know what I mean? It would happen. But it would be. But going back to your question, jealousy would have an impact. Of course it would. But I think it's been that way that Mike Ashley has kind of made the club his own and took that away from Newcastle fans. The same with obviously West Ham. They're willing to take anybody on at the minute, as long as they've got the ambition and as long as they can kind of, build that relationship back with the fans. And I think that's the same with the majority of clubs.
Is it just ambition though? Would a new owner be accepted who come in, made the club feel more together? Not negative as Mike Ashley, I suppose, and being so. If he come in as an owner as Hall, and kept that togetherness for the club, but you still stayed where you were. You was mid-table. You weren't buying 80 million, 90 million pound players. Would it still have that same effect? Still be happy because he's gone and it's just the fact he's out of the football club?
Baz, I'm not lying to you. Whoever, honestly, if you came in and had the money to buy Newcastle, you'd be the number one biggest fan.
Mate, I would fit in with your fans who get in the rain and take their shirt off for the size of my. I'll be in the middle. I'll be fine.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. Honestly, whoever takes, if this happens, and I have to keep on saying, if it looks like it's going to happen, literally all the Premier League have to do is give it a big tick and say, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If that's the case, they will be. Amanda Staley, who's kind of making this deal happen, will be universally loved in Newcastle. I can't guarantee that more than anything. I'm telling you now, because Mike Ashley's gone. That is the biggest thing. You can put anybody in charge of Newcastle at the minute. It's not Mike Ashley. If it's not Mike Ashley, that's the biggest issue in everything that's going on in this football club. Yeah, Mike Ashley is the problem. You take that away, Newcastle can be anything it wants to be if it's done right. And that's the only thing I can stress. If it's done right, where Newcastle be, are they going to win Premier Leagues? Probably not, but not in the immediate short term. But in the short term, you'd like to think FA Cup, League Cup, can we compete for them properly? Who knows?
I think Johnny's just wrapped it up good enough there. We're saying it's all about Mike Ashley getting out of the club. Jonathan, we thank you so much for your time you've given us and your great explanation of everything.
Absolute pleasure, lads.
For you as a fan base, and I hope you don't suffer what we've done. thank you very much for joining in, mate. But much appreciated. For you lot who have watched this, I thank you. Make sure you hit that like button, that share button, and more importantly, that subscribe button. And we'll be back with you very soon. Take care.